One of my favorite professors and authors is Joy DeGruy. And she wrote a book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. I believe that's the correct title. But the idea of the book is that we understand that from a chemical and neurological perspective, the brain starts to make adjustments based on your experiences. There was a study that was done, and I'm going to go back to her work. There was a study that was done about the children of Holocaust survivors. And in a nutshell, what it said was these children who were having the same kinds of stress reactions and responses of their parents who had gone through the Holocaust, these things were showing up in their children, and they were trying to figure out what that was about. And what they came to understand is this idea of epigenetics, which basically means that the genes changed to meet the environmental demand. And so if I am conditioned in my environment to have a stress response or a trauma response, without the existence of that, I grow up and grow into that is my behavior. And then we hear things like, well, the Lord knows my heart. I am who I am. God made me this way. Well, sorta, kind of, sorta. But when we go back to look at Mr. Gru's work, she brings into the story the fact that our people have been enslaved and all of the traumas of enslavement. Looking at this through an epigenetic lens, our DNA has changed over time through the enslavement of our people, through Jim Crow, black codes, mass incarceration, flooding our communities with drugs. Our DNA from an epigenetic lens has changed. And as such, we show up in a way that is historically and ancestrally tied to the experiences of our ancestors. So then how does trauma play out in our lives today? It plays out in ways of I don't trust people. I don't trust white people. Let's just be real, right? We are on automatic defense, ready to be defensive about any and everything that happens, whether it is something that we can tangibly point to or not. We have dietary issues that are historic in nature because of the ways in which we were forced to eat, right? The way that trauma shows up in our lives right now is all connected to our family's historical experiences. Our goals have to be, I have to unlearn behaviors that keep me from reaching my highest and best good. The truth is, we can reflexively attribute our inability to excel, grow, change, whatever. We can attribute that to whatever we want to connect it to. But the truth is, the power to change my life is in my hands. And all of that historical trauma, I need to be aware of what that was and how that shows up in my life today. Let me tell you a quick story. I think it's probably one of the most simple stories that describes how we do things generationally, right? And it's the story of a mom roasting a turkey for a family meal. All of the family is there, mama, grandmama, great-grandmama, cousins, uncles, everybody, because that's how we do, right? Young daughter comes, sees mom preparing the chicken for roasting to put in a pot. She ties the legs of the chicken together before putting it in the pot to put the lid on. And the daughter says, Mommy, why do you tie the legs of the chicken together? And mom says, well, I don't know. This is how my mother taught me to do it. So that's how I've always done it. Go ask your grandma. She walks off. She goes ask grandma. Grandma, I was watching mommy roast the chicken, prepare the chicken for roasting. She tied the legs together. She said, you taught her how to do that. Why did you do that? She said, well, baby, I don't know. That's the way my mama taught me. So go ask Big Mama. She's sitting on the porch. She goes out on the porch, asks great grandma, Big Mama, I just asked grandmama and mama why they tied the legs of the chicken together before they put it in the pan for roasting. She said, baby, we tied the legs of the chicken together because the roasting pots were too small to put the lid on without tying the chicken legs. So for 4 generations, we're tying chicken legs together when the size of the pots have changed, but the behavior has remained the same. And so when we look at the way trauma affects us as a people, there are ways that we had to adapt historically that we need to revisit. Is this really the best way to do things? Does the way that I do things now meet the same need that it did when we first learned it 400 years ago?